For generations, the journey to Alaska has been a modern-day odyssey, undertaken by truckers, families, and adventurers alike. Each year, thousands set out on this epic drive, drawn by the promise of wild beauty, opportunity, and the spirit of the unknown. The Alaska Highway is more than just a stretch of pavement. It's a rite of passage, a test of endurance, and a symbol of the enduring connection between the people of Alaska and the rest of North America. The Alaska Highway is more than a road. It's the vital artery connecting the lower 48 to America's most remote state. Winding through breathtaking mountain passes and endless forests, it carves a path through some of the most rugged and isolated terrain on the continent. For many, it represents hope, adventure, and the promise of a new beginning at the edge of the world. Trucks on this route deliver everything from fresh groceries to critical oil industry equipment, keeping Alaska's economy and daily life running. Without these shipments, store shelves would go empty, construction would grind to a halt, and vital industries would be left stranded. The highway is the backbone of supply for communities scattered across the vast Alaskan landscape, ensuring that even the most remote towns remain connected to the outside world. Along the way, truckers and travelers rely on a network of small towns, gas stations, and roadside diners, each one a lifeline in its own right. These outposts offer not just fuel and food but a sense of camaraderie and support, forging a unique community bound by the challenges of the road. Alaska's separation by Canadian wilderness makes this overland route essential, especially for time-sensitive goods. The highway is the only practical link for many shipments, and delays can have ripple effects across the state. Every mile traversed is a testament to the determination of those who keep Alaska supplied, no matter the season or the weather. The highway, built during World War II, stands as a symbol of US-Canada cooperation and mutual reliance. Constructed in record time under the pressure of war, it was a feat of engineering and international partnership. The legacy of that collaboration endures, reminding us that the challenges of the frontier can only be met when nations work together. For decades, the border was a formality, with commerce and community flowing freely. Families visited relatives, businesses traded goods, and travelers shared stories at border towns. The sense of openness fostered trust and prosperity on both sides, making the Alaska Highway not just a road, but a bridge between nations. But recent political tensions have put this lifeline at risk, threatening Alaska's stability and testing the resilience of a long-standing friendship. Disputes over trade, security, and policy have cast a shadow over the once reliable route, raising fears about the future of cross-border cooperation and the well-being of those who depend on the highway. The once simple journey north is now fraught with uncertainty, as the future of Alaska's connection to the rest of the U.S. hangs in the balance. For the people who call this land home, and for those who brave the long road to reach it, the Alaska Highway remains a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring human spirit that refuses to be cut off, even at the edge of the world. In the spring of 2025, British Columbia took a decisive step on the national stage by introducing the Economic Stabilization Tariff Response Act. This legislation was crafted as a bold and strategic answer to mounting threats of tariffs from the United States, which had been escalating trade tensions between the two countries. The move signaled a new era in Canada-US relations, with BC positioning itself at the forefront of economic defense. The new law grants the province the authority to impose significant tolls on vehicles traveling through BC en route to Alaska. However, these tolls are not automatic. They would only be triggered if the U.S. government first imposes tariffs on Canadian goods. This conditional approach is designed to act as both a deterrent and a bargaining chip, making it clear that BC will not hesitate to defend its interests if provoked. Deputy Premier Nikki Sharma described the act as a necessary shield to protect BC's economy and workers from potential harm. She emphasized that the legislation is temporary, set to expire in 2027, but strong enough to send a message. The announcement sparked a wave of support and debate across the country, as other provinces began to consider their own responses to the growing trade uncertainty. Ontario, for example, quickly threatened to introduce surcharges on electricity exports to the United States, leveraging its role as a major energy supplier. The province's leaders argued that such measures were necessary to protect Canadian industries and jobs, and to remind the U.S. of the interconnectedness of North American economies. In the north, Yukon responded by restricting access for U.S. businesses, particularly those seeking to operate or expand within the territory. These restrictions were intended to demonstrate solidarity with BC and to show that even smaller jurisdictions could play a role in the broader national strategy. Meanwhile, British Columbia took a cultural stand by boycotting alcohol imports from Republican-led states, sending a pointed message about the political dimensions of the dispute. Bars and liquor stores across the province began highlighting Canadian brands, and the move sparked conversations about consumer power and regional identity. Through these coordinated actions, Canada's message to its southern neighbor was unmistakable. It is prepared to retaliate with targeted economic measures if a trade war erupts. The federal government and provincial leaders stood united, warning that any escalation would be met with a firm and calculated response. The Alaska Highway, once celebrated as a symbol of cooperation and passage between nations, now stands as a potential line of defense. Its strategic importance has never been more apparent, as it could become a focal point in the unfolding economic standoff. With so much at stake for cross-border commerce, the coming months will test the resilience and resolve of both countries. The world is watching as Canada and the US navigate this high-stakes chapter in their long and complex relationship. President Trump's response was immediate and incendiary, blasting Canada's actions as hostile and a threat to US sovereignty. He accused Canada of holding Alaska hostage, framing the dispute as a matter of national pride and security. Trump's rhetoric, amplified by media allies, turned a trade spat into a public spectacle, fueling nationalist fervor on both sides. The aggressive stance left little room for quiet diplomacy, escalating tensions and making compromise harder. Alaskans now find themselves caught in the crossfire of a high-stakes diplomatic standoff. For Alaskans, this isn't just politics, it's a threat to daily life. The Alaska Trucking Association warns that new tolls would drive up prices on everything from groceries to vital equipment. The state's fragile supply chain, especially for time-sensitive goods, is at risk. Industries like oil and gas could face costly delays, impacting Alaska's economy. Governor Mike Dunleavy urges calm and negotiation, knowing Alaska stands to lose the most. The looming threat of isolation is real, with families, students, and patients fearing higher costs and limited access. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of connection, now represents anxiety and uncertainty. Alaskans wait, hoping their lifeline won't be severed. In response to mounting tensions, US politicians have issued a bold counter-threat, one that strikes at the heart of British Columbia's economy by targeting its lucrative cruise ship industry. This move signals a dramatic escalation in the ongoing dispute, as lawmakers look for leverage in a high-stakes standoff that could reshape cross-border relations for years to come. Senator Dan Sullivan, a key figure in this debate, has proposed waiving the Passenger Vessel Services Act, a law that has, for over a century, required foreign-flagged cruise ships traveling between US ports to make a stop in Canada. If this waiver is enacted, cruise ships could sail directly from Seattle to Alaska, bypassing Canadian ports like Vancouver and Victoria entirely. This proposal is not just a technical change, it's a direct challenge to the economic ties that bind the region. For decades, this law has funneled billions of dollars into British Columbia's economy, supporting thousands of jobs in tourism, hospitality, and local businesses. Each year, millions of cruise passengers disembark in BC, spending money at restaurants, shops, and attractions, and fueling a vibrant tourism sector that communities across the province depend on. The threat of waiving this law is not hypothetical. During the 2021 pandemic, when cruise ships were forced to skip Canadian ports, the impact was immediate and devastating. Vancouver's cruise terminals sat empty, local businesses shuttered, and the ripple effects were felt throughout the province. The memory of that economic shock still lingers, making this new threat all the more alarming for those who rely on the industry. This move by US lawmakers is a calculated warning, a signal that both sides have significant economic vulnerabilities. The interconnectedness of the two economies means that actions on one side of the border can have profound consequences on the other, raising the stakes for both governments as they navigate this dispute. While some in the US praise the hardline approach as a necessary tactic to protect American interests, others warn that it risks deepening the rift between the two countries. Business owners, economists, and political analysts alike caution that escalating the conflict could ultimately harm both economies, leading to job losses, reduced trade, and long-term damage to the vital relationship between Canada and the United States. Now, the fate of Alaska's supply chain and British Columbia's tourism industry hangs in the balance. the livelihoods of thousands of workers, the future of small businesses, and the prosperity of entire communities depend on the outcome of these negotiations. The stakes could not be higher for those living and working along the Pacific coast. As both sides dig in, the question remains: will these threats force a compromise and bring the two nations back to the negotiating table, or will they push Canada and the United States further apart, risking lasting damage to a partnership that has endured for generations? Canadian officials insist their new law isn't just retaliation, it's about broader domestic concerns. Environmental protection is a key reason. The Alaska Highway cuts through sensitive wilderness, and heavy traffic poses risks. Tolls could fund environmental safeguards and infrastructure maintenance, ensuring those who use the roads help pay for their upkeep. Public safety and road wear are also cited, as thousands of trucks strain local infrastructure. Indigenous rights add another layer, with First Nations demanding consultation on routes crossing their lands. Canada frames its policy as responsible stewardship, not just economic defense. The dispute is about more than tariffs, it's about sovereignty, safety, and respect for the land. On the ground, locals and experts see the conflict differently than national leaders. Dr. Jennifer Collins, a UBC political scientist, calls the U.S. reaction political theater, noting Canada's actions stem from long-standing domestic issues. Yukon and BC residents view the border as part of daily life, not a battleground. Some business owners worry about lost revenue if traffic drops, while others downplay the dispute as overblown. In Alaska, anxiety mixes with resilience. Residents prepare for higher costs but remain determined to adapt. Both sides feel frustration that distant politicians control their fate. The overwhelming hope is for a return to normalcy and quiet cooperation. Ordinary people want solutions, not more political drama. At its core, this dispute is about sovereignty. Canada controls its roads, even those built with U.S. help during WITU. The Alaska Highway is Canadian territory, and there's no legal obligation to grant the U.S. perpetual toll-free access. While the U.S. appeals to history and partnership, Canada asserts its right to regulate its infrastructure. The spirit of wartime cooperation is powerful, but the world has changed since 1942. Legal arguments won't resolve this. Only diplomacy can bridge the gap. Talks are underway, seeking a solution that respects Canadian authority and Alaska's unique needs. The outcome will depend on negotiation, not legal precedent. Despite the heated rhetoric, both nations are quietly negotiating behind the scenes. Canada signals its measures are defensive, not permanent, and is open to compromise. A likely solution: special permits or exemptions for essential Alaskan goods, balancing regulation with economic necessity. Regional leaders' input is crucial to crafting a practical, lasting agreement. The Alaska Highway's future as a symbol of cooperation depends on both sides prioritizing diplomacy over politics. The hope is that reason will prevail, restoring the quiet partnership that has long defined the U.S.-Canada border.